Welcome back to my little horse portrait on an optical crystal block. Here I have got a large diamond burr filling in the back end of the horse. I like to sort of work forwards, then I don't have to think about the back again, because you always want the forward areas to be engraved over the back. I'm being very careful when I get to the absolute edge of this. I will finish it off in a moment with a smaller burr. Here I have a pink stone. You could use any other stone really. I'm looking at this edge and it's not looking too neat actually. So I've got a Dura white in the drill now. Nice soft stone. And I will just neaten that edge off. Got to be really careful when you get to the very edges, especially when you've got a large, rough diamond in the drill. Okie dokes. Just smoothing off the top end and blending a little bit. The stone will darken the brightness of the diamond work. I've got a large sintered diamond in the drill now. When I say sintered, it is diamond dust all the way through the burr as opposed to just the coating on the outside. Right, I'm referring to the image as much as possible. I'm just making a note of some of the areas of detail. It's not the best image, I have to say, so I can't see very clearly what's going on in the background, but basically filling it in, but keeping in mind a few areas that have a shape of a shade. I might be going a little bit deeper in areas you probably can't see on the film. But all this will be worked into with stones and rubbers, rather like a painting as usual. You will note that I'm a little bit over the edge of the wooden door in the front, but that's fine because we can go over that end again to bring that forward once I've finished with the bottom of the horse's neck. Here I've got the pink stone and I am smoothing it over a little bit. This will slightly dull the diamond, but not as much as the soft white Dura white stone. You may not notice much of a difference at the moment. It's very subtle, but of course once you get a rubber to it, you will then notice the difference. See, now in the image I can't really see what's going on at the side there, so I've just filled it in. Here is a rather coarse rubber. I do like this rubber. And you can see that it instantly creates a shade. I've been engraving many years and I keep my rings on, but I like to comment that if you are not used to wearing rings and engraving glass, take your rings off in case you scratch the glass. You can see some subtle half tones going on there, and I'm slowly building up. If you haven't seen part 1, where I simply engrave the framing of this image of the horse, in other words the stable part, this is engraved on the back of the optical crystal block. I will be engraving the name Floyd on the front later, which I will be sandblasting. I won't be hand engraving, and I won't be filming that. It's just a simple name. You can see it on the printed image next to the engraving here. So I've got that diamond on the go again, and this is where we start filling in the area. It's a little bit tricky because you can't make the horse that dark, because otherwise you really won't be able to see it. It's a kind of various shades of grey that we're working with, but you don't want parts of it to be invisible because they're so dark. So we just have to understand that this horse will be somewhat brighter and shinier and lighter than the original photograph. What I'm doing at the moment is picking out the brightest area with this diamond. Do be very careful around the eyes. If you're a little bit nervous, do take a smaller diamond. This is viewing it from the front, of course. It always looks so much nicer when you're looking through the glass, especially optical crystal or a really good lead crystal. Now I've got some water on the go, and I'm engraving slightly deeper. I'm not engraving deep on this entire picture, so you don't want suddenly to have incredibly deep ears sticking forward, but I'm wanting them deeper than the top of the door, so that they appear well in front of it. A good little 3D effect. Of course, the ears are quite dark, but I'm starting off with a diamond because of the depth that I'm requiring. Just putting the basic shape of the hair. What I call literally preparing the canvas. This is not obviously how the hair is going to look. You will notice that I am creating strokes that are in line or in flow with the hair, the way the hair would be. Always be conscious of the direction of the hair on an animal. Even with the base engraving of it, before we do anything else, preparing the canvas as it were, as I mentioned earlier. Make sure that you've got your strokes in the right direction. For those of you that are new, the use of water on the simple drip feed system with a two-way gang valve and literally a suspended bottle of water and this little tube coming down. The gang valve you buy from a pet shop because they use them in fish tanks, a very simple little thing, and it's got a little tap on it so you can open up and let it drip. You start off, of course, by sucking the water through because it's basically like a siphon. And the water lubricates the diamond so it cuts better, it lasts longer, and the glass will have a better cut, a far smoother cut. And also it keeps the dust down, it keeps it wet, so it doesn't fly about so much. So there's all sorts of advantages of using water. But of course, it dulls the engraving while you're working on it, so you really do need a good light source. So here I have a green stone. It's quite a nice stone, similar to the pink one actually, but the pink one tends to have little bits and pieces in it. But you might find that you've got all sorts of different colours of stones, and This happens to be one of my favorite stones because it's not smooth by any means, but it's quite gentle and has a lovely blending action. So it's a sort of a 3/4 tone, if you like. So you might be able to pick up where in some places on the face I've gone slightly deeper, so the light is picking up some little ridges. And then this sort of stone I'm going very lightly over the top. So it's just blending the edges together. So here I've gone back to the smallish diamond and just adding some bits of hair coming down. Again, just the background hair. So now we have a Dura white, soft white stone, going lightly over the edges, and what it is doing, it's half toning and smoothing out any surface that it can find. Where you've gone slightly deeper with the diamond, it won't be able to reach the base of those strokes, but it will be softening anything that is level with the surface, if you know what I mean. So I'm not pressing hard. I did actually on the edge of the ear. I pressed a little bit harder, but in general I'm pressing quite lightly because it works really well, this burr. Run it very, very slowly. Now you can see I don't use water with these because I find that it wears them down too much. But they can get very hot very quickly, and they can actually burn the glass, sort of giving it a little bit of a blistering effect. And sometimes if you make the burr too hot, it'll just pop off. So run it very slowly. Usually about 10 to 15,000 RPM is fine. And if you can't see the speed of your drill, basically you're running it slower, much slower than you would a diamond. Probably if you've got a little Dremel or something that has speed numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that, then definitely on about one or two. I'm just guessing. I know I did a review on a little Dremel, Stylo Plus, I think, or something like that, and I can't actually remember. If you have a look on my videos, you will find it. Okay, so I'm wanting to change the shape of this burr slightly. I want it more rounded because it had a funny point to it. So I'm just taking that point at the top off and creating a more of a ball effect. I'm just running it against a stone, but you can run it against the back of a diamond or a stone burr or something like that. And I'm very gently engraving round and round and round and round in the eye, pressing slightly harder, not forgetting to stop off in the middle for a while. Otherwise you end up with a donut eye. But you also don't want to go too deep, because otherwise the eye will be popping out. So just giving it a little bit of a curve. curve as in like a lens. And there I half-toned some lids. Okay, you can see I've gone a little bit too deep on the back eye, but I will disguise that later on. Here I've got a teeny tiny little diamond burr and some water, and just sorting out the eyelids. Always use a nice, clean, soft cloth. Here's my nice big coarse rubber, and just running it over the hair, you can see instantly it is darkening where the stone, the Dura White stone, had softened the surface a little bit. With barely any pressure, this is making it much darker and giving it the undulating hair impression. Adding a few other dark areas. It's a little bit of a clumsy size burr to be doing that with, but it's not too, you don't have to be too precise with this sort of thing. Here I've got a disc, a little rubber disc, and you will see that it creates a much darker shadow. You can see the shape of the disc is not ideal. It's a little bit worn. And in a moment, I will be showing you how to sort that out. Again, this disc is not going to be going into, you can see the eyelids where it's still quite bright, even though I've run the rubber over it. But because those eyelids are a little bit deeper, it can't get down to the bottom of them. So they stay nice and bright, and it polishes any surface that it can get its hands on. Here I have a little Dura White, and I'm softening the edge of the horse's cheek. I don't know what you would call it. Yeah, it looks like a cheek to me. I'm not a horsey person, actually. I've engraved loads and loads of horses in my life, but I certainly don't ride them. Right, here I'm doing something completely different to my burr. I'm flattening the top of it. This is a Dura White. And you can see a little test piece. I want to create some darker hairs. So on its own on the glass you can see a lightish line. But this will actually, when I say darker hairs, it will, and there they look brighter. But they will be a soft tone. Now in the photograph, this horse has like slightly fuzzy hair coming on the top layer of hair. It's sort of frizzy and fuzzy, almost like he needs a good bit of conditioner, straightener. So this burr I'm using again in really slow speed and pressing slightly harder, because by pressing down it is going to chew nicely into the glass the soft tone. There, I'll attempt to show you, but the photograph is anything but sharp, so it's so hard to see details. It's always tricky when your clients bring you photographs that they can't get a better photograph. Either the animal is deceased, or it's a surprise, and so they are limited to what photographs they can find of their daughter's animal or their friend's animal. They can't go and ask them for a photograph, otherwise they'll know what they're doing. And so you're sometimes very limited, which is really tricky, because I like to have very clear photographs where I can see the eyelashes, and always at eye level. And luckily with this one, we managed to find a photograph where the horse is actually at a good angle. So it's not face on and it's not sideways. It's got a really good, nice portrait stature, if you like. And yeah, I was quite impressed with that. So even though the photograph itself is of very poor quality, at least I could see the basics. So here I've got a tiny little rubber, and I am just darkening parts of the eye. My personal feeling about optical crystal is I find it quite hard compared to a hand-blown lead crystal. It's quite a different animal, and I'm not overly fond of it, to be honest. I much prefer engraving on a lovely, lovely lead crystal. So here I've got a soft grey rubber, and I'm just looking for little areas to soften. It's quite a nice rubber. It will slightly go into areas that the harder ones don't, so it'll blend a little bit. This horse has got that funny thing on his snout, which is it looks like he's got a serious growth. There is something there in the photograph, but I do sort it out before it's finished, don't worry. So now darkening this ear. I've got actually a very strange burr for this job. It's a little cone-shaped burr, which was not such a good idea, I think. So I've changed my mind, and I am now sharpening a rat's tail. So in other words, I'm taking the tip off it, and I'm going to do some more curly-whirly hair. And it wasn't sharp enough, so now I have got, because I had used a stone, so now I've got the back end of a very large diamond, and I will have a much better result in taking the top off, flattening the point to get to some fresh diamonds. There we are. That's much, much better. And he's got a couple of strands of hair going literally right over his eyeball. So these strands of hair are definitely a bit brighter than they are in the photograph, but I think they need to be for this. You know, you notice, I notice, but anyone else actually won't even think about it. You know, if they don't know glass engraving, they just won't think about the fact that it is a bit whiter than it could be. Now there are some sparkles in the eye. Not really showing up there. I could have left those straggly strands of hair away from his eye, but if a client knows a photograph well, you know, these things are quite important. And perhaps those hairs are always over his eye. Larger grey rubber again. What have I got here? I've got a Dura White and I'm just neatening up the background where the ear has come over the top. But I don't really want to make it look like I've outlined it. But I think I do fix that. I'm not sure if this is a Dura White actually. I don't know. That might be a tiny green stone, a very tiny green stone. Now you can see those ears are really nice and neat in front of the door. So here I have got a slightly larger green stone and I am fixing up that growth that he had on his face. Well, slightly. A really nice blending tool this, and I'm glad I went over that again. Heavens above. He hasn't got a growth, by the way, it's just I don't know what all these lumpy bits are, these veins and blobs that they have on their faces. What did I do there? I'm using a little grey rubber by hand, sorry. That just slightly softens. There we are. That's much better. Right, here I've got a coarse diamond and just adding, again, going over the brightest highlights, the white pattern that he's got on his face. Back to my little rat's tail, adding a few more hairs. And also adding some movement of the hair pattern from the top of the snout. The snout? I don't know if that's right, actually. What do you call it? The long part of his face. Oh, dearie me, how ignorant am I. But these little movements, they really give the impression of a hairy face. Just putting a few little strokes here and there. And of course, the most important final bits is little hairy bits. Little whiskers. Be very careful. Do a simple, easy, quick stroke. Don't be slow. You don't want a hard, strong, wobbly line. You just want something that ends so sharp that it almost, well, it just is very, very sharp. So a flick is what you want. And of course your signature and the date. And just to show you what I did there, okay, this rubber disc was a bit worn, and so I wanted to get a little bit more out of it, so I simply turned it over. So now I have a nice sharp edge to work with. Just finishing up a few areas I wanted slightly darker. It's quite subtle, you can't really see. But a nice bit of contrasting definition on the stable door. Another great burr. That is a lovely rubber to use. Slightly harder rubber. Okay, and I must admit, in this video I noticed that I didn't film the engraving of the top of the front, the top of the door. So I do that just to bring it out. You can see that the body looks slightly as though it's, well, maybe it is leaning a little bit and a bit of a hair is sticking on top of the door, but I did neaten that a little bit. Okay, so there you are. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.